Hello and welcome to News Scope Daily TV, your trusted source for in-depth analysis, breaking news, and the stories that shape our world today. And in this episode, we're diving into a story that has just sent shockwaves across North America. Canada has officially halted water exports, effectively cutting off the United States from vital Great Lakes trade routes. This unprecedented move not only threatens cross-border commerce but also raises serious political and economic questions, leaving former President Trump and his policies under the spotlight like never before. Stay with us as we break down what this means for the U.S. economy, the potential impact on international relations, and why this decision could redefine the balance of power between these two neighboring nations. Whether you're concerned about trade, politics, or resource security, this is a story you cannot afford to miss. And remember, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and like this video so you never miss our exclusive analyses and updates. In a dramatic escalation of North American resource tensions, Canada has officially announced a suspension of all water exports across its borders, effectively cutting off the United States from key trade and shipping routes along the Great Lakes. This decision marks one of the most significant interruptions to cross-border commerce in recent history and has far-reaching economic, political, and environmental implications. Canada's strategic move. The Canadian government, citing both environmental concerns and national resource security, has imposed strict limits on the export of fresh water to the United States. Water from the Great Lakes system, a vital resource supplying millions of Canadians and Americans, is now considered a protected commodity under new federal legislation. Officials in Ottawa have stated that the decision is aimed at safeguarding Canada's freshwater reserves amidst growing concerns over climate change, water scarcity, and industrial overuse. Experts note that Canada's move is unprecedented. While minor restrictions on water shipments have existed historically, a complete halt of this magnitude directly targeting cross-border trade is almost without precedent. The Great Lakes, which account for approximately 21% of the world's surface freshwater supply, are not only a crucial environmental asset, but also a key conduit for industrial and commercial transportation. Impact on the United States. For the United States, the consequences are immediate and severe. Several states bordering the Great Lakes, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and New York, rely heavily on the lakes for the shipment of industrial goods, raw materials, and agricultural products. With Canada cutting access, the U.S. faces logistical bottlenecks, increased shipping costs, and potential shortages in critical sectors such as manufacturing, energy, and agriculture. Moreover, analysts warn that the decision could exacerbate existing political tensions between Washington and Ottawa. Trade relations have already been tense over tariffs, energy policy, and border security. Canada's water embargo represents a significant bargaining chip, signaling that Ottawa is willing to take drastic measures to assert sovereignty over its natural resources. Political fallout. Trump under pressure. For former President Donald Trump and his supporters, this development is particularly alarming. Trump, who has long positioned himself as a defender of American economic dominance and cross-border commerce, is now facing a crisis that directly challenges his previous policies on trade and North American relations. Critics argue that years of prioritizing rapid industrial expansion and minimal environmental oversight may have left the United States vulnerable to resource disruptions such as this. The halt in water exports has also triggered intense scrutiny of U.S. water management policies and infrastructure. Environmental and policy experts have highlighted the country's lack of investment in sustainable water security measures, suggesting that the U.S. is now highly dependent on Canadian goodwill for access to essential freshwater reserves. This dependence could have political ramifications for Trump's influence in future elections, particularly in Great Lakes states that are critical swing regions. Economic and environmental consequences. Economically, the impact of Canada's decision is expected to ripple far beyond local trade. Shipping companies are forced to reroute cargo, raising costs and delaying deliveries. Industries dependent on large volumes of water, such as agriculture, food processing, and chemical manufacturing, are facing operational challenges. The federal government in the U.S. may be forced to implement emergency measures, including water rationing in some industrial sectors, to mitigate the disruption. Environmentally, Canada's move underscores growing awareness of fresh water as a strategic asset. With climate change intensifying droughts and water shortages globally, controlling access to major freshwater reserves is no longer a purely domestic issue. It is now a central geopolitical concern. Canada's assertive action may set a precedent for other nations with abundant freshwater resources to prioritize domestic needs over cross-border trade, reshaping global water politics. U.S. response and future implications. Washington has yet to announce a coordinated response, but sources indicate that the situation is being treated as a high-level emergency. Discussions are reportedly underway regarding diplomatic negotiations, potential trade retaliation, and even temporary exemptions for essential water shipments. Political analysts warn that the crisis may redefine the U.S.-Canada relationship for years to come. For Trump, the situation serves as both a cautionary tale and a political flashpoint. The former president's economic policies, trade strategies, and resource management decisions are under renewed scrutiny, with critics arguing that American over-reliance on Canadian resources represents a strategic vulnerability. Canada's suspension of water exports to the United States is more than a regional trade issue. It is a stark reminder of the growing strategic importance of natural resources in North America. By asserting control over its freshwater reserves, Canada has positioned itself as a formidable player in the emerging geopolitical landscape, while the U.S., and particularly Trump's political narrative, faces significant challenges. As negotiations unfold and economic consequences deepen, one thing is clear. Access to the Great Lakes trade routes is no longer guaranteed, and the era of taking cross-border resources for granted may be coming to an end. Canada's water embargo is not just an economic or environmental move, it's a strategic geopolitical signal. By restricting access to the Great Lakes, Canada is asserting sovereignty over a critical transboundary resource, demonstrating that natural resources can be used as leverage in international relations. Shift in North American power dynamics. The U.S. has historically dominated cross-border trade with Canada, often underestimating Canada's ability to act independently. This embargo highlights a power imbalance correction. Canada is signaling that it will not be a passive participant in trade negotiations. Impact on U.S. foreign policy. The halt may force the U.S. to reassess its reliance on neighboring resources. Politically, it challenges Trump's America First rhetoric by revealing that domestic policy alone cannot secure vital resources, especially when they originate outside U.S. borders. Potential ripple effects for NAFTA, USMCA. If Canada extends its restrictions beyond water to other natural resources, it could strain trade agreements, prompting renegotiations or new clauses protecting resource sovereignty. Beyond immediate trade, the embargo is likely to have long-term structural effects on the U.S. economy. Manufacturing and industry. Heavy industries in the Midwest, steel, automotive, food processing, rely on Great Lakes shipping routes for raw materials. Delays or rerouting increase operational costs, which could lead to layoffs or price increases for consumers. Supply chain disruption. Ports in Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, and New York are interconnected with Canadian ports. The disruption could trigger cascading delays across logistics networks and global supply chains. Investment uncertainty. Investors may see the U.S. as vulnerable due to its dependence on Canadian resources, potentially diverting capital to other countries with more secure access to raw materials. Environmental strategy and Canada's position. Canada is framing this embargo as an environmental safeguard, but the implications are strategic. Climate change and water scarcity. Freshwater resources are increasingly geopolitically valuable. By controlling access, Canada is not only protecting its ecosystem, but also positioning itself as a key player in future water diplomacy. Domestic political benefits for Canada. Ottawa can appeal to its citizens by showing decisive action to protect national resources, while sending a strong message internationally about environmental stewardship. Trump and U.S. political vulnerability. For Trump, this crisis hits multiple fronts. Policy credibility. Trump has long portrayed himself as a protector of American interests, yet this embargo reveals a strategic blind spot, dependence on foreign-controlled natural resources. Electoral impact. Swing states like Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, critical for Trump's electoral base, are directly affected by disruptions to the Great Lakes. Water rationing, shipping delays, or industrial slowdowns could alienate voters. Narrative for opponents. Political rivals can frame this as a failure of leadership and foresight, undermining Trump's claims of being a strong economic defender of the U.S. Strategic lessons and future outlook. This event could set a precedent with lasting consequences. Resource nationalism. Other countries with critical natural resources may follow Canada's example, restricting exports to assert leverage over more powerful neighbors. U.S. infrastructure vulnerability. The U.S. may face pressure to invest in domestic water management and alternative trade routes to reduce future dependency. Potential negotiations. Diplomatic channels will likely open, but Canada has a strong bargaining position. Washington may have to offer trade concessions, environmental cooperation, or financial incentives to restore access. Long-term implications for U.S.-Canada relations. The embargo could fundamentally reshape bilateral relations. Trust between the two nations may decline if the U.S. is seen as unprepared to respect or protect shared resources. It could spur a new era of Canadian assertiveness, with Ottawa leveraging natural resources in negotiations over energy, defense, and trade. Long-term U.S. policy may shift toward domestic water security programs, including large-scale infrastructure investments, as a buffer against foreign control. That wraps up today's deep dive into Canada's bold decision to halt water exports and the ripple effects it's causing across North America. From economic disruptions in the U.S. to political pressures on Trump and beyond, it's clear this story is far from over, and we'll be following it closely every step of the way. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends and colleagues, and subscribe to News Scope Daily TV for more breaking news, exclusive reports, and expert commentary on the issues that matter most. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take on this unfolding crisis. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next report here on News Scope Daily TV, where knowledge meets insight.